I was staring at my 6-year-old son, Owen, his wide eyes brimming with panic. His little fingers dug into my forearm like he was holding on for dear life. "Dad, we gotta hide, quick," he whispered, his voice shaky as hell. I dropped to one knee, locking eyes with him. "What's got you spooked, buddy?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. "They're coming tonight." I saw it on Mom's phone. A cold knot twisted in my stomach. My wife, Clara, had left just 3 hours ago, her fancy duffel bag packed for what she called a weekend getaway with her old college friends. Our 15th anniversary was looming, just 2 weeks out. "Show me what you found, Owen," I said, keeping my voice calm as I could. He led me to our bedroom, where Clara had left her old phone behind, the one she swore was busted. Owen knew her passcode, her birth year, so predictable I almost laughed despite the dread creeping in. "I just wanted to play a game," he explained, but then all these texts popped up. I scrolled through a string of messages between Clara and someone labeled office contact. The latest one read, "The house will be empty tonight. He's clueless. Kids in bed by 9. My jaw clenched so tight it ached. 15 years married, 2 kids, a life I thought was rock solid. My roofing company, built from nothing, had given us a cushy life, a 6-bedroom place in a swanky part of Seattle, vacations to Italy, private schools for the kids. Clara's side gig as a home stager never took off, despite me pulling strings and footing the bill. "Owen, go grab your sister," I told him. "Tell her we're playing a special game tonight." My 8-year-old daughter, Mia, shuffled in, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Dad, what's happening?" she mumbled. "We're playing secret agents tonight," I said, forcing a grin. "I need you both to pack a small bag with your favorite stuff, like we practiced for emergencies." While they gathered their things, I checked the security cameras on my phone. The yard looked quiet, neatly trimmed hedges, the double garage, the sleek pool glowing under the backyard lights. Everything seemed normal, for now. I slipped into my office, moved a framed painting, a wedding gift from Clara's dad, and opened the hidden safe. I pulled out my Beretta, untouched for years, but muscle memory kicked in as I checked the clip and chambered around. My mind flashed back to my childhood in a rundown trailer park in rural Kentucky, always moving when bill collectors came knocking, my mom stuck with one deadbeat boyfriend after another. I'd clawed my way out of that life, built my business from the ground up. It was my proof that grit could beat anything. When I met Clara Thornton at a charity gala, she was everything I'd worked for: class, stability, polish. Her dad, a state representative named Warren Thornton, made it clear I wasn't good enough. But Clara married me anyway, defying her family, or so I thought. I called my right-hand man, Javier Morales, who answered on the first ring. "Boss, you okay?" he asked. "Need a favor, no questions," I said. "Meet me at the cabin in an hour and bring that security guy you mentioned, the one who keeps things quiet." "Done," Javier said. "Clara and the kids all right?" My voice turned hard. "Just get there." I rounded up the kids and their bags, guiding them to the garage. As we climbed into my Tahoe, I heard tires crunching on the driveway. Headlights lit up the front of the house as a car pulled in. "Duck down," I hissed. The kids dropped below the windows. Through the security app, I saw a black Lexus roll up, not Clara's car. A tall guy in a sharp suit stepped out, built like he hit the gym daily. I recognized him instantly, Preston Hayes, the up-and-coming county prosecutor who'd been to our dinner parties, someone Clara called an old family friend. My finger hovered over the garage door button. I could confront him right then, gun in hand, rage boiling over. But Owen's scared face in the rearview mirror snapped me back. I eased the Tahoe out the side garage exit, turned the lights off, and pulled away from the house. As we hit the main road, a second car sped by, Clara's silver BMW. "Is that Mom?" Mia asked, peeking up. "Yeah, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice eerily calm. "But we're still on our mission, so we can't let her see us." My kids didn't need to witness what was coming. But I wasn't about to let this betrayal slide. I'd fought too damn hard for everything I had, and I never forgot those who crossed me. Our family cabin sat on 15 acres of wooded land near Lake Sawyer, about 2 hours from Seattle. I'd bought it 4 years back as a retreat, though Clara never cared for roughing it, even in a 4,000 square foot place with every luxury. Javier was there when we pulled up, alongside a short, plain-looking guy with round glasses who just said his name was Finn. "Kids can crash in the upstairs loft," I told them after quick introductions. Got streaming set up on the TV. Once Owen and Mia were settled with blankets and cartoons, I took Javier and Finn to the main room. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the lake under moonlight, but I yanked the curtain shut before speaking. I need dirt, I said, pouring 3 glasses of whiskey. Everything you can dig up on County Prosecutor Preston Hayes and whatever he's got going with my wife. Finn pulled a laptop from his bag. How fast do you need this? He asked. Yesterday, I shot back. While Finn got to work, I filled Javier in on the mess. He'd been with me since we were hammering nails on our first fixer-upper, back when my roofing business was just a dream. Now we were running a multi-million-dollar operation. Hayes has his sights set higher than the county prosecutor, Javier said. Rumor is he's being prepped for a governor's run, with the Thorntons bankrolling him. I nodded, the pieces clicking. Clara's family never thought I was worth a damn. 15 years in, and Warren still calls me Clara's husband at their fancy golf club shindigs. So, what's your move, boss? Javier asked, eyeing me over his whiskey. I stared into my glass, the amber liquid catching the light. First, I need the full picture. But I'm not losing my kids, and I'm not letting them make me look like an idiot. Finn burned the midnight oil, digging through data, while Javier and I hashed out plans. By sunrise, the truth was uglier than I'd feared. Hayes and Clara weren't just a fling, it went back a year and a half, starting right when Hayes landed his prosecutor gig. Worse, Finn uncovered money trails tying Warren Thornton to offshore accounts linked to dummy companies that had outbid my firm on big city contracts. This isn't just an affair, I said, my voice low. They're trying to tear down everything I've built. It all made sense now, the lost bids, the sudden red tape, the random state audits. Clara wasn't just cheating, she was sabotaging my life's work. Your wife got into your office safe twice last month, Finn said, pulling up security footage I didn't even know we had. And check this out. He played a recording of Clara's voice, Dad's sure the zoning vote's locked in next month. Once your company lands the Harbor Square deal, you'll have all you need. My grip on the whiskey glass tightened until Javier looked worried it'd crack. Boss, if they're setting up your business for some kind of legal trap, he started. This ain't about business, I cut in. It's personal. Hayes wants my life, my reputation, my wife. And Warren's finally making his move to erase the guy he never wanted in his daughter's life. I spent the morning on the phone, shifting assets and activating backup plans I'd set up years ago, praying I'd never need them. By afternoon, I saw the trap they were laying for me. That night, as the kids splashed around Lake Sawyer under Javier's watchful eye, my phone lit up with Clara's name. Where the hell are you? She snapped, her voice sharp but laced with something else, panic, maybe. And where are my kids? My kids, she said, not ours. We're on a little camping trip, I replied, cool as ice. Father-kid bonding time. You need to come home now, she pushed. There's an issue with the Harbor Square project. Preston says, Preston? I cut her off. You mean County Prosecutor Hayes? The silence on her end said it all. Russell, please, she said, switching to that sweet tone she used when she wanted to play me. Whatever you think is going on, I know enough, I said. Tell Hayes and your dad their little scheme's got a hitch. Me. I hung up and turned to Finn, who'd been recording the call. She's at the house with Hayes and 2 others, he said, showing me satellite images on his screen. They're freaking out. I nodded. Good. Step 1's done. What's step 2? Javier asked. I smirked, but it felt cold. They want to use my family against me? Let's see how they like it when I flip their game. 3 days went by at the cabin. I kept a tight lid on communication, letting Clara stew in the dark while I planned my counterattack. The kids, thinking we were on a surprise getaway, loved the lake and the hikes I set up, clueless about the storm brewing. On the 4th morning, I got word my first moves had hit their mark. My lawyer, Evelyn Brooks, a pit bull in tailored suits who'd been with me since my first big project, texted, papers filed. Judge Carver assigned. Emergency hearing set for Friday. I'd filed for divorce and full custody of Owen and Mia, citing abandonment and moral issues. Judge Carver was old school, no fan of political meddling in his courtroom, a perfect pick with Hayes and Warren in the mix. Clara's tried hitting your company servers 17 times, Finn said, showing me a log of digital activity. And there's been a weird movement at your house. Security footage showed guys in plain vans hauling stuff out of my home office in Seattle. Preston Hayes was caught on camera barking orders, while Clara paced nervously in the background. "They're getting sloppy," I said, watching the feed. "Desperate moves mean mistakes." My phone buzzed with an unknown number, and I answered on speaker. "This is Grant," I said, voice cold as steel. "Mr. Grant, this is Special Agent Monica Rivera, FBI, Public Corruption Unit," a woman replied, her tone sharp but tense. "We need to discuss an ongoing investigation." I glanced at Finn, who was already tracing the call, and he gave me a nod. "Funny timing, Agent Rivera. I'm guessing County Prosecutor Hayes is tied to this." Silence hung for a beat. "I can't disclose details, sir," she said. "Look, let's cut to it," I snapped. "Hayes is weaponizing federal resources for a personal grudge. You might want to double-check your evidence before you get roped into a dirty prosecution." Another pause. "How do you know about, I'm happy to meet Agent Rivera," I cut in, "but only with my lawyer there. And I suggest you dig into who touched those files and when. Check the metadata." I hung up and turned to Javier. "They're speeding up their plan. We gotta move faster." The next day, I left Owen and Mia with Javier at the Lake Sawyer cabin and drove to meet Evelyn at her office in downtown Tacoma. My sharp-dressed attorney greeted me with a tight smile. "They're pushing harder than we thought," she said, leading me to a conference room littered with papers. "Hayes has a grand jury looking at indictments, and your father-in-law's pulling strings to rush it. What about our counter-moves?" I asked. Evelyn's grin turned fierce. "Already rolling. Your soon-to-be ex doesn't know you've been recording everything at home for the last 5 years, including her chats with Hayes about using your marriage to get at your business. I'd wired the house for sound and video after a break-in scare 2 years back, with all the data stored on servers only I could access." "And the offshore accounts?" I pressed. "Traced to Warren Thornton," she said. "His assistant folded when we showed him some dirt. Warren's right-hand man had a thing for casinos and younger guys, info I'd held onto but never used until now." "What about the kids?" I asked, my real worry. "Judge Carver's seen the evidence of Clara's abandonment and her shady ties to Hayes. He's leaning toward giving you temporary full custody until the final hearing." That evening, as I got ready to head back to the cabin, Evelyn handed me a sealed envelope. "This came for you. The courier insisted it be you directly." Inside was a photo of Clara, Hayes, and Warren Thornton in what looked like a hotel meeting room, papers strewn around. A note on the back read, "Some of us stay loyal. Not all Thorntons are against you." I recognized the handwriting, Clara's younger brother, Julian Thornton. The family black sheep who ditched politics to become a sculptor. He and I had always clicked, both of us oddballs in the Thornton clan. As I drove back to the cabin, my phone rang. Clara again. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. "For the kids." "We'll talk Friday," I replied. "In court." "This isn't what you think, Tom," she pleaded. "You're making a huge mistake." "No, Clara," I said. "You picked the wrong guy to screw over." That night, with Owen and Mia asleep, I locked in the final plan with Javier and Finn. The info Julian promised could be the key to ending this. "What if it's a setup?" Javier asked. I checked my Beretta. "Then we'll be ready for that, too." Friday came like a storm you could feel building. At the court hearing, Judge Carver granted me temporary custody and froze a bunch of disputed assets, leaving Hayes, who was there watching, visibly rattled. Afterward, I prepped for my meeting with Julian. "Stay with the kids," I told Javier. "If I don't call by midnight, roll out the backup plan." The Lake Sawyer pavilion was empty when I got there, mist curling off the water in the chilly night. Julian stepped out of the shadows, looking less like the laid-back artist I knew and more like a man carrying bad news. "They're planning to arrest you Monday," he said flat out. "Hayes has cooked up evidence of bid rigging and kickbacks. Dad's calling in every favor he's got." "Why tell me?" I asked. "They're your family." Julian met my eyes. "Clara went too far. This isn't justice, it's a vendetta. And those kids adore you. You're a damn good dad." He handed me a USB drive. "It's all here. The real talks, the actual money trails. Hayes has been using Dad's connections to squash competitors for years." I caught a flicker of movement at the edge of the Lake Sawyer pavilion. "We've got company," I muttered to Julian. His eyes went wide. "I didn't set this up, I swear." A gunshot cut him off, and he grabbed his chest, blood staining his shirt as I dove behind a concrete pillar. 4 guys were closing in, guns out, no badges, no warnings. This wasn't a bust, it was a hit. I pulled my Beretta and fired back, clipping one in the arm. Grabbing Julian, who was barely hanging on, I dragged him toward the water where I'd stashed a small boat as a backup plan. "Hold on, man," I said, easing him into the boat. "Who sent them?" Julian coughed, blood on his lips. "Not Clara. She doesn't know how deep they're in." I gunned the motor, speeding across the lake as bullets chased us into the dark. The pavilion faded behind us, but I knew this was just the start of the fight. The safe house, tucked in a quiet corner of Tacoma, was a fixer-upper my company had redone and kept off the radar. It was no match for the fancy Seattle place I shared with Clara, but it was secure and untraceable. Julian lay in a spare bedroom, his breathing weak. The bullet had grazed his lung, missing his heart. My contact, a former Army medic who worked for cash and no questions, had patched him up but didn't sugarcoat it. "He needs a hospital by tomorrow, or he's done," the guy said, zipping his bag. I handed him a fat stack of bills. "Can you get him to a place that won't ask questions or call the cops?" He paused, then nodded. "There's a cash-only clinic for people who need to stay low. It'll cost you." "Money's not an issue," I said. After he left to set it up, I sat by Julian as he faded in and out. "Why'd you really stick your neck out for me?" I asked when he was lucid. His face twisted in pain as he shifted. "Mia's got my eyes, those sharp ones," he rasped. "Ever notice?" The words hit me like a punch. I stared at my brother-in-law, the truth sinking in. "Mia's my kid," he said faintly. "Years back, Clara was pissed at you. Showed up at my studio, said she wanted to hit you where it hurt." My mind flashed to a big project in Houston 9 years ago. I was gone for weeks, only home on weekends. Clara had been cold when I got back, but I chalked it up to me being away. "Why come clean now?" I asked. "Mia deserves better than Clara," he said, gripping my wrist hard. "You've been a real dad to her, better than I could have been." That should have broken me, but instead, it sharpened my resolve. Mia was my daughter in every way that counted, blood didn't change that. I'd raised her, loved her, just like my stepdad did for me after my real father bailed. "Does Hayes know?" I asked. Julian shook his head. "Just Clara and me. Now you." Before I could say more, my phone buzzed with a text from Finn, "FBI at your house. Hayes is there with a warrant." Then Javier called. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone pinged your phone. There's movement on the road to the cabin." I switched to tactical mode. "Get the kids out. Emergency plan, now." I turned to Julian. "You'll be at the clinic in an hour. This place might be burned." He grabbed my arm again. "The USB, it's got everything, but Hayes has a guy in the U.S. Attorney's office, Marcus Vaughn. He's pushing the federal case." I nodded. "Rest. I've got this." After setting up Julian's transfer, I smashed my phone and switched to a burner. The pavilion ambush meant this wasn't just about ruining my name or my company, they wanted me gone for good. 2 hours later, Javier pulled up to a second safe house with Owen and Mia, both groggy and confused. "Where are we, Dad?" Mia asked, her sharp eyes heavy with sleep. I saw Julian in her now, but it didn't change a thing. "Just another stop on our adventure," I said, burying the storm in my chest. "You're both doing great." Once the kids were settled in a bedroom, Javier filled me in. They hit the cabin hard, 4 SUVs, a crew of private security, not cops. They tore it apart but left when it was empty. I left the tracker on a rig heading east to throw them off. I nodded. "Did Finn grab the evidence from my home server before the warrant?" "All safe," Javier said. "But they're freezing your accounts, business and personal." Evelyn's pushing back. "Doesn't matter," I said. I'd stashed emergency funds in gold, crypto, and cash for years, a holdover from my rough childhood that Clara always called paranoid. "Kids' documents?" "Got 'em from the storage unit, passports, birth certificates, everything." I checked my watch, almost midnight. "We move at dawn. I need you to drop something off with Agent Rivera at the FBI." Javier raised an eyebrow. "Do you trust her?" "Not really, but I trust her ambition." Finn's intel says she's been passed over for promotion twice for guys with better connections. She'll jump on this if she sees a win. That night, I put together 2 packages. The first had just enough from Julian's USB to cast doubt on Hayes and Warren Thornton, serious enough to make Rivera question things, but not enough to close the case without me. The second went to Evelyn, packed with airtight proof of the plot against me, including recordings of Clara and Hayes scheming to use the kids as leverage. At 5 a.m., as Javier headed out to deliver the FBI package, my burner rang. The clinic. Julian had taken a turn for the worse overnight. He was asking for me. By the time I got to the clinic, Julian Thornton was barely hanging on, his face ashen under the oxygen mask. "You got it," he whispered when we were alone. I held up the voice recorder he'd asked for during our quick call. "I need to make a confession. Legal statement." For the next 20 minutes, he laid it all out, the plot between Preston Hayes and Warren Thornton to ruin my name and my roofing business, the ambush at the Lake Sawyer pavilion, and the truth about Mia's parentage. His voice faded with every word, but he didn't waver. "My father," he rasped, "he won't stop until you're crushed or dead. Hayes is the same. They're obsessed with power." When he was done, he yanked off the mask despite my protests. "One last thing," he said. "My place. Safes behind a cheap Picasso knockoff. Combos Mia's birthday. Everything you need's inside." His monitors started blaring as his vitals tanked. His final words, as the medical staff rushed in, were, "Keep her safe, Tom." Both of them. Julian died at 6:42 a.m. The doctors blamed complications from the gunshot, but I wasn't buying it. Someone got to him, a nurse, an orderly, paid off to make sure he'd never talk. As I left the clinic, my burner phone rang. It was Evelyn. "They've issued a warrant for you," she said, straight to the point. "Charges are fraud, racketeering, and now obstruction. They're saying you kidnapped the kids. Have they hit the offshore accounts yet?" I asked. "Not yet. Your contingency plans are holding. What about Judge Carver?" "They're pushing for a new judge, claiming bias. Hearings set for Monday." I chewed on that. "And Clara?" Evelyn's voice turned sharp. "She's playing the heartbroken mom for the cameras, with Hayes right beside her as the family friend and legal advisor. Warren's pushing for a multi-agency task force to hunt you and the kids. Get the custody recordings to Judge Carver's chambers directly," I said. "File an emergency motion citing danger to the kids. Use the pavilion shooting as proof." After hanging up, I drove to Julian's apartment in a quiet Tacoma neighborhood. The place was dead silent in the early morning, no signs of a tail. Using a key Julian had given me months back for emergencies, I slipped inside and found the safe behind a tacky Picasso ripoff. Inside was another USB drive, a handwritten notebook, legal papers including a paternity test confirming Julian as Mia's biological father, and a will naming me as Mia's guardian if he died. Julian had known the risks of crossing his father and Hayes. My burner buzzed again, this time, Finn. "You gotta see this," he said, sending a video link. It was a press conference. Clara stood at a podium, tears streaking her face but her voice steady, flanked by Hayes and Warren Thornton. "I'm terrified for my children's safety," she said, her voice cracking just right. "My husband's been unraveling lately, paranoid and erratic. His business troubles have broken him, and now he's taken my babies. Tom, if you're watching, please bring Owen and Mia home. They need me." I watched, rage simmering, as Hayes stepped up. "We believe Mr. Grant may try to flee the country with the children," he said, all grave and official. "Airports and borders are on alert. We urge anyone with information to come forward." Warren Thornton went next, his face a mask of grandfatherly worry. "As a father and grandfather, I'm heartbroken. I'm offering a $100,000 reward for information leading to my grandchildren's safe return." It was a hell of a show, grieving mom, concerned DA, doting grandfather. They'd painted me as a deranged kidnapper. But they'd screwed up. "They don't know Julian's dead," I said to Finn. "And they don't know what he gave me." It was time to flip the script. I arranged for Owen and Mia to stay with Javier's sister, a retired schoolteacher living off the grid in a small mountain town near Spokane. Then I prepped my next move. "They think I'll bolt," I told Javier on an encrypted video call. "So I'm walking straight through the front door." "That's suicide, boss," he said, worried in his voice. "Not if we own the story," I shot back. My plan was a high-stakes gamble, but I was all in. While Evelyn worked the legal angles, filing motions to counter their moves, I set up a meeting that could turn the tide. Agent Monica Rivera, the FBI contact who first reached out, agreed to meet at a spot I picked, a bustling farmer's market in a neighboring county near Tacoma. I got there early, posting lookouts, ex-military guys who'd handled security for my roofing jobs, and waited. Rivera showed up alone, dressed down in jeans and a light jacket, but my crew spotted her concealed pistol and two plainclothes agents keeping their distance at opposite ends of the market. "Gutsy move, Mr. Grant," she said, eyeing a stack of heirloom tomatoes while keeping her voice low. "Half the state's law enforcement is hunting you. Yet here you are, no local cops or marshals in tow," I pointed out, standing next to her. "That's a choice." Her face stayed stone-cold neutral. "Let's just say I'm curious why this case dropped on my desk." The chain of command felt off. I nodded. Hayes skipped protocol to pull in the feds, using his buddy Marcus Vaughn in the U.S. Attorney's office. Her eyes flicked wider for a split second, confirming I was on target. "You know a lot about a guy on the lam." "I'm not running, Agent Rivera," I said. "I'm shielding my kids from the people who tried to take out Julian Thornton." I handed her a sealed envelope. "Digital forensics on the evidence they're using against me. Check the timestamps, created and modified after I filed for divorce." Then I slipped her a USB drive. "This is security footage from the Lake Sawyer pavilion shooting. For hired guns targeting me and Julian." She tucked both away carefully. "Why me?" she asked. "Because your work on the Redmond corruption case last year shows you chase facts, not political favors. And because you've been passed over for promotion twice, despite closing more cases than your competition." Her expression finally cracked, showing surprise. "You've done your digging." "I built a business in a cutthroat industry," I said. "Research keeps you alive." I glanced at my watch. "You've got 48 hours to verify what I gave you. After that, I've got other plans." "Other plans?" she asked. "Let's just say certain news outlets and congressional oversight folks will get detailed packages. Messier for everyone." As I walked away, she called out, "Where are the kids, Mr. Grant?" "Safe," I said without looking back, which is more than they'd be with their mother. Next, I tapped into the network I'd built over 15 years in business. By nightfall, I'd lined up a meeting with Marcus Vaughn's old law partner, a guy with his own beef against the slick prosecutor. Harold Vance welcomed me into his home office in Seattle, his face grim. "You're taking a hell of a risk showing up here," he said. "No bigger than the one you took, reaching out," I replied. His call had come earlier that day through Evelyn, hinting at dirt on the case against me. "Vaughn's dirty," Vance said flat out, pouring us each a shot of bourbon. "He's been funneling cash through property deals for Hayes and Warren Thornton for years. That's why he's rushing this case, to cover his own ass as much as theirs." "Can you prove it?" I asked. He slid a folder across his desk, bank records, real estate deals through shell companies, emails. "Vaughn got sloppy when we were partners. I kept copies as a safety net. Why help me now?" I pressed. He swirled his bourbon, staring into it. "Vaughn pushed me out of my own firm by threatening to leak my son's gambling debts to the Bar Association. My kid was in deep, skimming from client accounts. Vaughn used it to steal everything I built. Bad blood makes for loyal allies, I'd learned that early on. By midnight, I had what I needed, hard proof of Vaughn's corruption that could bolster Rivera's investigation and maybe flip him against Hayes and Warren. The next morning, news hit that shifted everything. Julian Thornton's death was reported as a hiking accident, no mention of gunshots or the clinic where he died. Warren Thornton broke the news himself, playing the grieving father while doubling down on pleas to find his missing grandkids. The cover-up confirmed my gut, they were burying the pavilion hit to keep their tracks clean. It was time to speed things up. Evelyn set up an emergency hearing with Judge Carver, closed to the public to protect the kids. When I walked into his chambers with her, court security was ready, briefed by the judge himself. "Mr. Grant," Carver said, voice heavy, "you know there are warrants out for you?" "Yes, Your Honor," I replied. "I'll deal with them after my kids are safe." For the next hour, Evelyn and I laid out the case, Julian's deathbed confession, the money trail tying Hayes, Warren Thornton, and Vaughn, and the legal papers naming me as Mia's guardian after Julian's death. Judge Carver, known for taking his time, didn't hesitate. I'm extending the emergency custody order and sealing all records pending investigation of these allegations, he said, then fixed me with a hard stare. But, Mr. Grant, you'll need to turn yourself in to answer the charges. I understand, Your Honor, I said. I'll surrender to the FBI, Agent Rivera specifically, once my kids are in protective custody, out of reach of anyone who'd hurt them. Judge Carver weighed my request carefully. I'll assign court-appointed guardians with no ties to anyone in this mess, he said. The kids' location stays secret, known only to this court and the guardians. It wasn't perfect, but it beat the alternative. I nodded, agreeing to the terms. As I slipped out of the Tacoma courthouse through a back exit the judge had arranged, Evelyn's phone rang. Her face tightened as she listened. They're hitting your company, she said after hanging up. State regulators just halted all Grant construction projects, claiming an investigation. They're tearing through your offices with search warrants as we speak. I'd seen it coming. Javier's got it under control, I said. The backup plans are solid. What I didn't expect was the news blaring from Evelyn's car dashboard screen when we got in. A breaking report showed Clara being wheeled out of our Seattle house on a stretcher, sedated, with Preston Hayes somberly telling reporters that the stress of her kid's abduction had pushed her to a breakdown, requiring hospitalization. They're building an insanity defense, Evelyn said, her voice sharp. If the evidence points to her, they'll say she was manipulated, too unstable to know better. I watched the charade, my blood cold. They're pivoting. So will we. That evening, after getting Owen and Mia safely to the court-appointed guardians, I prepped for the riskiest part of my plan, surrendering to Agent Monica Rivera. I was banking on the evidence I'd given her and the extra leverage I'd lined up. But first, I had one more move. Using a secure line Finn set up, I called Eleanor Thornton, Warren's wife of 40 years and Clara's mother. The conversation was short but hit hard. By morning, Eleanor had pulled $50 million from family accounts and announced her separation from Warren, citing irreconcilable moral conflicts. The timing, and the exact amount matching recent transfers to offshore accounts tied to Hayes and Marcus Vaughn, was no accident. As I got ready to turn myself in, Javier called with an update. The office raids turned up nothing, he said. All the records were clean, just like you planned. But they're freezing the company accounts anyway. What about Project Revival? I asked, meaning our shadow company. Up and running, he said. Key clients are already signed with Cascade Builders. Grant Construction's on ice, but the new outfit's taking over with the same crew, just like you laid out. I let myself crack a small grin. Years of planning for the worst were paying off. And our guy in D.C.? I asked. Congressman Harper got the package, Javier said. His office says he's pushing for a special investigation into Hayes and Warren Thornton's state contract dealings. It was falling into place, but I knew the most dangerous moment was when you thought you'd won. That's when people slip, and I don't slip. The morning of my planned surrender brought a curveball. Finn, monitoring police channels, picked up chatter about heavy activity, tactical teams gearing up for a high-risk operation. They're not waiting for you to turn yourself in, he warned over our encrypted line. DA, local SWAT, even some private contractors. They're hitting multiple spots. I processed it fast. They found one of the safe houses. Someone leaked. Only a handful knew my fallback locations. Javier was rock solid. Evelyn was bound by attorney-client privilege. The court-appointed guardians only knew where they picked up the kids. Check on Owen and Mia, I told Finn, already moving to clear out of my current spot. Make sure the court's protective order is holding. Minutes later, Finn confirmed the kids were safe in their court-mandated spot, but the news wasn't all good. Judge Carver's off the case, he said. They're calling it case overload and reassigned it to Judge Leonard Bryce. The name set off alarms. Bryce was tight with Warren Thornton, same law school, same elite social clubs. They're making their play, I said. Rivera's probably been sidelined or overruled. A call to Evelyn confirmed it. DA's claiming an anonymous tip tying you to money laundering through your projects, she said. They've got a federal judge issuing new warrants for all your known associates and properties. Anonymous tip, I scoffed. Hayes is panicking. Evelyn's voice softened, a rare thing. Tom, they're throwing everything at you. Using multiple agencies means they can dodge accountability if something goes wrong when they grab you. The message was clear, this wasn't about an arrest. It was a potential hit. I made my call. Tell Rivera I'm moving up the meeting, I said to Evelyn. Send her the coordinates for location 3. And activate the kill switch. The kill switch was my last resort, a full data dump of every scrap of evidence on the corruption, the pavilion ambush, and the conspiracy, set to auto-release to major news outlets, oversight committees, and rival politicians if I didn't enter a code every 24 hours. As I headed to the meet, an old warehouse in Seattle my company had bought for redevelopment, Finn fed me updates on the tactical team's movements. The tactical teams were hitting my old hideouts, still clueless about where I was holed up. Agent Monica Rivera pulled up alone in her government sedan, parking discreetly at the warehouse's service entrance in Seattle. I watched her on the security feed, her hand hovering near but not touching her holstered gun. Clear, Finn confirmed after sweeping for bugs. But she's wired. Figured, I said. Let her in. Rivera's eyebrows shot up when she saw me sitting calmly at a table, papers spread out like I was hosting a board meeting. You're early, she said, staying on her feet. Plans changed, I replied. Multiple tactical teams are raiding my known spots right now. D-Acing on it, which smells like someone's cooking up fake drug charges to justify a heavier hand. Her face gave nothing away, but she didn't push back. I got word of the operation an hour ago, she said. Different task force, separate chain of command. Convenient, I said, leaning back. Judge Carver's yanked from the case, and these raids kick off at the same time? That's high-level coordination. She crossed her arms. Why drag me here, Grant, if you're already in the loop? You know I can't stop them. I slid a folder her way. Julian Thornton's paternity test proving he's Mia's biological father, his will naming me her guardian, and his deathbed confession about the scheme cooked up by Preston Hayes, Warren Thornton, and Marcus Vaughn. She skimmed the papers, her cool cracking for a second. This shifts the custody fight, but it doesn't touch the financial crimes pinned on you. Check the last file, I said, pointing. Bank records showing Vaughn laundering cash through property deals for Hayes and Thornton, the same setup they tried to frame me for. Her phone buzzed like crazy as she read, her expression tightening. Your teams are hitting empty spots, I said, reading her. Now they're scrambling, wondering where I vanished. This isn't a game, Grant, she said, voice low. People could get hurt if this blows up. It stopped being a game when they tried to take me and Julian out at the Lake Sawyer pavilion, I shot back, leaning in. You've got a choice, Rivera. Follow the real evidence or get sucked into a crooked prosecution that's falling apart. She studied me for a long moment. If I take you in now, I can keep you safe during processing. Not enough, I said. I need a written guarantee of protective custody, away from any local lockup where Hayes is pulled. And I need confirmation that Owen and Mia stay under court protection, their location locked down. Before she could answer, her phone rang. She put it on speaker. Agent Rivera, this is Director Kessler, a voice barked. Your location's been pinged. Stand down and pull out. Tactical teams are en route. Our eyes locked across the table. The director's order confirmed it. This wasn't about taking me in, it was about making sure my evidence never saw daylight. Rivera made her call. She holstered her gun, unpinned her badge. You've got 10 minutes before they're here, she said. There's a service tunnel to the river road. That's as far as I can help. I grabbed the papers. Why tank your career? Because I signed up to enforce the law, not to help dirty suits ruin good people, she said, handing me a business card with a handwritten number. My personal line. When you're ready to come in on fair terms, call me. As she walked out the front, drawing attention, I slipped through the tunnel with Finn. We hit the backup ride just as the first SWAT team swarmed the warehouse. Kill switch still active? I asked Finn. Armed and ready, he said. If you don't punch in the code in 24 hours, everything drops. My burner pinged with a text from Evelyn. Judge Bryce denied the motion to keep protective custody. New hearing tomorrow, 9 a.m., to decide the kids' placement. They were moving faster than I'd expected, using the courts to claw back control of Owen and Mia before I could unleash my full evidence. We need to speed this up, I told Finn. Get Javier. It's time for Phase 3. Phase 3 was my boldest move yet, a direct strike at the conspirators themselves. While Evelyn kept the legal fight going, I was ready to hit Hayes and Warren where it hurt most, their carefully polished public images. That night, as Warren Thornton hosted a glitzy fundraiser for Preston Hayes' governor campaign in a downtown Seattle ballroom, Finn pulled off a digital heist. When Warren introduced Hayes to the crowd of deep-pocketed donors and political bigwigs, the venue's screens flipped from campaign hype to something else entirely. Security footage from the Lake Sawyer pavilion played, showing the hit squad targeting Julian Thornton and me, followed by Clara's recorded talks with Hayes about using our marriage to dig into my business. The clincher was Julian's deathbed confession, naming Warren and Hayes as the masterminds behind the plot to ruin me. The room exploded into chaos. News crews, there for the event, caught the meltdown as security hustled Warren and Hayes off stage. By midnight, the footage was blowing up online and on TV, with pundits questioning Julian's hiking accident and the charges against me. Evelyn called with an update. Judge Bryce had bailed on the custody case, citing public perception issues. The case went back to Judge Carver, who reinstated the protective custody order for Owen and Mia. Things were swinging my way, but I knew Hayes and Warren were backed into a corner, not beaten. That made them more dangerous than ever. The final showdown was coming, and I was ready to finish this on my terms. At dawn, news hit that shook even me. Marcus Vaughn, the crooked U.S. attorney, was found dead in his home, an apparent suicide with a typed note confessing to evidence tampering and corruption. Too clean, too convenient. They're tying up loose ends, I told Javier on a secure call. Vaughn knew too much and could have cracked. This is getting heavy, boss, he said. If they're willing to take out a federal prosecutor, they've been playing for keeps since day one, I cut in. This just proves it. Vaughn's confession claimed I'd coerced him with threats to his family to frame Hayes and Warren. It was a sloppy attempt to muddy my evidence, but it stirred enough doubt for some news outlets to start questioning if the fundraiser footage was faked. I had to act fast before they flipped the narrative again. Going nuclear, dumping all my evidence to the public, would get the truth out, but it might not shield me or the kids from immediate blowback. I needed leverage to make moving against me too costly for them. The answer came from an unexpected ally, Eleanor Thornton, Warren's estranged wife. She reached out through Julian's art dealer, a neutral guy I'd met at gallery openings in Tacoma. We met at the dealer's private studio, with Finn handling security from a distance. Eleanor, in her 60s with silver hair and a sharp suit, carried the polished look of a senator's wife, but her eyes had a steel I hadn't seen before. Julian called me before he died, she said, cutting straight to it. He told me everything, about Mia, the plot against you, what Warren and Hayes were planning. You stayed quiet, I said, keeping my voice even. Her expression didn't flinch. I've been with Warren for 40 years, Mr. Grant. I learned when to speak and when to plan in silence. She pulled a small hard drive from her purse. This is 40 years of insurance, recordings, bank records, emails. Warren thought a woman my age wouldn't know how to track his deals. I took the device carefully. Why hand this over? Her voice caught, just for a second. Because Julian trusted you with his daughter. And Warren forgot the golden rule of politics, never leave witnesses, especially not the one in your bed. The drive was a goldmine, decades of dirt on Warren's corruption, tying in Hayes and other heavy hitters, plus recent talks about solving the Grant problem permanently. With this, I had everything, but pulling it off needed perfect timing. Agent Rivera agreed to another meeting, this time at the FBI's Seattle field office with her boss, Assistant Director Nolan, in the room. Nolan started skeptical, but his face grew grim as Evelyn and I laid out the evidence, Eleanor's recordings, Julian's testimony, and details on Vaughn's suspicious suicide. This isn't just local corruption, Nolan said, flipping through the files. We're looking at conspiracy, attempted murder, obstruction, and maybe a staged killing of a federal prosecutor. Which is why we need formal witness protection for Mr. Grant and his children, Evelyn pushed. The local charges are clearly retaliation, built on fake evidence. Nolan made a few calls, his words careful and clipped. After the third, he turned to me. Washington's greenlit a cooperation deal, Assistant Director Nolan told me. Testify, and we'll suspend all local charges pending our investigation. You and your kids get witness protection during the process. It was the goal I'd been pushing for, but I needed one more lock. I wanted in writing that my custody of Owen and Mia is ironclad, no matter what comes up about biological paternity, I said, my voice steady. That's outside our usual scope, Nolan started, but I cut him off. I've got evidence that could tank half this state's political machine. That's worth bending the rules. By nightfall, the deal was signed. I'd testify before a federal grand jury, local charges would be paused, and most importantly, Owen and Mia would stay with me under federal protection. As I prepped to reunite with the kids, news hit that Preston Hayes had been hauled into federal custody for questioning about Marcus Vaughn's suicide. Hours later, Warren Thornton announced he was stepping back from public life to focus on family matters. Their house of cards was collapsing, but I knew it wasn't over. Clara was still out there, playing the grieving mom, holed up in a private clinic owned by one of Warren's cronies. People like Warren and Hayes had deep pockets and deeper connections, ones that could dodge regular legal traps. The last phase of my plan tackled these loose ends, using Eleanor Thornton's evidence and Julian's testimony. Evelyn filed motions to permanently strip Clara's parental rights, citing her role in the conspiracy against me and the dangers she posed to the kids. At the same time, I sent anonymous packages to media contacts, texts and recordings of Clara orchestrating false charges and scheming to use Owen and Mia against me. The public story flipped fast. Clara went from victim to villain, her teary press conference is now undercut by her own words and damning messages in audio. 3 days into witness protection, word came that Clara had bolted from the clinic. Her whereabouts were unknown, but airports and borders were on high alert. She won't get far, Agent Rivera told me during our daily check-in. Her accounts are watched, her passport flagged. I wasn't so sure. She's got her father's resources and a knack for playing smarter than people expect. My gut was right. That night, as I settled Owen and Mia into our temporary safe house, a cozy place on a military base near Tacoma, alarms blared across the compound. Stay with the kids, I told the FBI detail, heading to the secure room for emergencies. Through the security feed, I watched base guards stop an unauthorized SUV at the gate. The driver floored it, smashing through the barrier, sparking a short chase that ended when security spikes shredded the tires. The driver? Clara. How the hell did she find us? Rivera demanded when she arrived 30 minutes later. The answer came during Clara's interrogation. She'd slipped a tracker into Owen's favorite stuffed bear, a toy so personal I'd never ditch it during our moves. She was always clever, I said when Rivera filled me in. Just not as clever as she thought. Clara's desperate stun handed us the final nail for her coffin. Judge Carver, reviewing the full case, tracker, base breach, and all, issued a permanent order giving me sole legal and physical custody of Owen and Mia. When faced with the federal case piling up against her, Clara tried one last play, offering to testify against Warren and Hayes for a lighter deal. She can live with the consequences of the life she chose, I told the prosecutors. With Clara's cooperation, the federal investigation snowballed, pulling in more threads of their corrupt web. Within weeks, Warren Thornton, Preston Hayes, and their cronies were hit with federal indictments, corruption, evidence tampering, conspiracy to commit murder. The man who once sneered at me as beneath his daughter now faced life behind bars. 6 months later, the case against them churned forward steadily. Several players took plea deals, tightening the noose on the prosecution's targets. Owen and Mia stayed in protective custody with me, our lives loosening up as the threats faded. Owen treated it like a grand adventure, rolling with the punches. Mia, sharper than most her age, asked tough questions about Clara. You're my daughter in every way that counts, I told her when she fretted about what family meant. I rebuilt Cascade Builders under Javier's watch. Most of Grant Construction's clients and crew jumped ship to us, loyal to me, not the old company name. Evelyn fought to unfreeze Grant Construction's assets, arguing they were seized on bunk evidence. When the coast was clear, I moved Owen and Mia to a new home, a fortified property near Spokane, bought through Cascade Builders, with hidden security features and wooded grounds. Javier oversaw the build, making it our safe haven. Agent Rivera dropped a bombshell one day. Clara's cooperation deal was yanked after she was caught tipping off investigation targets, sending flirty texts to Hayes with details on federal moves. She's facing charges as a full co-conspirator now, no leniency, Rivera said. Eleanor Thornton's records alone guarantee her a long sentence. Eleanor took the stand, a poised figure laying out 40 years of her husband's dirty deals. Her calm testimony shredded Warren's frantic denials. I focused on healing, family therapy, new routines, helping Owen and Mia find their footing. Owen settled into his new school like a champ. Mia had a harder time but slowly warmed to the steady love and structure I gave her. On Mia's 9th birthday, I handed her a special gift, a painting Julian had made for her, pulled from his Tacoma studio. Your uncle Julian crafted this for you, I said, sticking to our agreed term. It's like the world after a storm clears, she said, nailing Julian's vision. The legal hammer dropped fast. Warren took a plea for 25 years, no parole, ratting out his remaining allies. Clara, stripped of her deal, drew 12 years for conspiracy, tampering, and the base security breach. Before her sentence started, I visited her at the federal detention center, not for her sake, but for mine, to close the book. Through the glass, she said, I never meant for it to spiral like this. Dad never respected you. Hayes was everything he wanted for me, pedigree, power. It started as a way to force the divorce, then got out of hand. When I asked about Julian's death, her face twitched with pain. I never wanted him hurt. When I heard, I tried to pull back, but it was too late. The kids'll be okay, I told her. When they're ready, I won't turn them against you. The truth'll be enough. Her composure broke. Will you bring them to see me someday? That's up to them when they're older, I said. I won't block it, but I won't push it either. Walking out of that detention center, I felt lighter, not forgiven, but done. Some betrayals cut too deep for that, but this was the end of one chapter and the start of another. 5 years later, Cascade Builders is thriving, having swallowed Grant Construction's salvaged assets. Owen, now 11, is a confident kid, tearing up the soccer field. Mia, 14, is a budding artist, channeling Julian's gift. We've found our rhythm as a family. Warren died in prison. Hayes, still serving time, was later found dead, an apparent suicide. Rivera broke the news, but I felt justice had already been served. Clara's still locked up, her sentence trimmed slightly. I kept my word, arranging Owen's visits to her. Mia opts out, and I respect that. My biggest project now is an urban renewal development in Seattle, anchored by the Julian Thornton Arts Hub, a tribute to the man whose sacrifice turned the tide. Clara sent me a letter after Hayes' death, full of regret. She thanked me for Owen's visits, accepted Mia's distance, admitted she'd been blind to her own mistakes, and hoped for a different bond with the kids someday. I filed it away, asking nothing in return. Her final appeal was shot down. She's got about 4 years left. My enemies lost it all, power, freedom, everything. I protected what matters, my kids and my ability to build something good. That's not vengeance, that's victory. My focus stays on family and creating proof of a strength that outlasts betrayal.